In daily life, there are foods that seem very familiar, even appearing frequently on the dinner table, but they hide many problems that not everyone pays attention to. Bacon, or smoked meat, is a prime example. Many people still think of it as just a convenient, easy-to-prepare food, suitable for a quick breakfast. However, few people know that behind those thin slices of meat is a multi-billion-dollar industry, where dozens of large and small brands compete fiercely for space on supermarket shelves. And in this competition, quality is not always prioritized. The dang thing is that consumers, especially those who shop impulsively or rely on familiar brands, are very easily put off by the situation of paying more but receiving less value than expected. In reality, when a product becomes popular and is produced on a large scale, pressure for costs and profits leads many businesses to optimize processes, even cutting corners on quality. This leads to a paradox. Bacon, at the same or even higher price, often doesn't deliver the same value to consumers. Some products look appealing at first glance, with attractive packaging and premium or natural advertising, but in practice reveal many shortcomings such as high fat content, low meat yield, significant shrinkage during cooking, or an unsatisfactory flavor. This not only affects the dining experience, but also presents a significant financial concern, as consumers are silently incurring a hidden cost with each purchase. For middle-aged and older adults, who tend to prioritize stability and real value in their spending, this is an issue that needs to be taken seriously. Smart spending isn't just about choosing cheaper products. More importantly, it's about understanding what you're paying for. When a product is priced high but doesn't deliver commensurate quality, it's no longer consumption, but a form of financial loss. And if this happens repeatedly, over the long term, it will create a significant expense that we may not even realize. Therefore, it is essential to re-examine familiar products from the perspective of their true value, not to cause worry or panic, but to better understand how the market operates, thereby making choices that suit one's needs and financial capabilities. A slice of bacon may seem small, but the story behind it reflects a larger principle. In consumption, the most important thing is not the brand or the price, but the real value we receive after each purchase. While the previous section focused on value and spending, this section takes a much more serious approach, directly impacting consumer health and safety. The issues discussed have gone beyond mere poor quality or negative experiences, crossing the line into a full-blown food safety crisis. A prime example is the listeria outbreak at a production facility, resulting in numerous hospitalizations and even fatalities. Significantly, prior to this incident, the facility had shown numerous warning signs of unsanitary conditions, yet continued to operate for an extended period. When authorities conducted inspections, what was found shocked many. From dead insects and mold to accumulated moisture and stains in the processing area, everything indicated a production environment that did not meet safety standards. This raises a huge question. Why could a product labeled premium, with a price higher than the market average, have such serious problems? And more importantly, what did consumers place their trust in when choosing these products? From a consumer finance perspective, this isn't just about food, it's a lesson in trust and risk. Many people have the mentality that higher prices mean better quality and are willing to spend more for peace of mind. However, reality shows that price doesn't always reflect quality or safety. When a product experiences a serious problem, the damage isn't limited to the money spent. It can lead to larger consequences related to health, treatment costs, and mental well-being. These risks are especially concerning for middle-aged and elderly people who have weaker immune systems and are more sensitive to food safety issues. A seemingly small choice at the supermarket can lead to significant consequences if not carefully considered. Therefore, instead of relying solely on brand or price, thoroughly researching the origin, production process, and related warnings is essential. This isn't excessive worry, but rather a way to protect your health and your wallet from unnecessary risks. Besides food safety, another issue worth considering for consumers is the ownership and supply chain behind familiar brands. As mentioned, some products are packaged with very domestic imagery, traditional colors, and even create a sense of familiarity and trustworthiness. However, the reality is that these brands have belonged to foreign corporations for many years. This isn't legally wrong, but it creates an information gap, leading consumers to mistakenly believe they are using a product from a domestic company, when in fact, control and operation lie elsewhere. From a financial and consumer perspective, this is a factor that should not be overlooked. When we buy a product, we are not just buying its utility value, but also indirectly supporting the production chain and business system behind it. If information about ownership is not clearly communicated, consumers will find it difficult to make choices that align with their views and desires. Especially in the context of globalization, where mergers and acquisitions are constantly occurring, a brand changing ownership while retaining its old image can make it difficult for many people to recognize the change. Furthermore, Ownership structure is also related to how the supply chain operates, quality control standards, and product development direction. A large global corporation may offer advantages in mass production and cost effectiveness, but it also tends to prioritize cost optimization. This sometimes leads to a decline in quality or changes that consumers are not clearly informed about. For middle-aged and older consumers who have been familiar with a brand for many years, this change can occur subtly, causing them to continue trusting the old image without realizing that the underlying nature has changed. Therefore, understanding the origin and ownership structure of a product is not overly complicated, but rather a necessary step towards more conscious consumption. It's not about doubting everything, but about ensuring that every penny spent is in line with the value and trust one expects. In an increasingly complex market, information transparency is key to empowering consumers to maintain control over their decisions. One of the most obvious problems highlighted in the article is the decline in the actual quality of many bacon products on the market today. Looking at the packaging alone, consumers might find it difficult to notice this, as the images remain appealing, the brands are familiar, and the prices are even higher than before. However, in actual use, many shortcomings begin to emerge. One common phenomenon is that the meat is injected with water or treated to maintain weight, causing it to shrink significantly during cooking, leaving very little of the original amount of meat. This creates the feeling of buying a large quantity, but only receiving a fraction of its value, with the rest evaporating in the pan. Furthermore, the fat content in many products is increasingly high, while the lean meat content has decreased significantly. Some packages of bacon, when opened, reveal a high proportion of white fat, with thin, even almost translucent slices of meat. During cooking, a lot of fat melts away, leading to waste and posing health risks if consumed regularly. Not only that, the uneven slicing also makes cooking difficult. Some slices are too thin and burn quickly, while thicker slices don't cook through, resulting in burnt and undercooked areas, making it very hard to control. These experiences reveal a reality that product quality is no longer as consistent as before. It's worth noting that this decline isn't always clearly indicated in product information, but only becomes apparent during use. For consumers, especially those with long-standing shopping habits based on experience, this can be misleading, as they believe familiar products will maintain their previous quality. However, in a constantly changing market, this is no longer a certainty. From a consumer finance perspective, this is a significant form of value loss. When a product's quality deteriorates but its price doesn't decrease proportionally, consumers are essentially losing out without realizing it. Simply put, a package of bacon might only offer 70% of its expected value. If this happens repeatedly, the total wasted cost can be substantial. Therefore, carefully observing the actual quality of a product, rather than relying solely on brand name or habit, is a crucial step in helping consumers better protect both their health and finances. Another noteworthy point mentioned is the widening gap between the selling price and the actual value consumers receive. Many bacon products on the market today are positioned in the premium segment, with prices significantly higher than the average. However, upon closer analysis of ingredients and user experience, many cases show that the quality does not match the price paid. Some products use the same additives and preservation methods as cheaper versions, but are sold at nearly double the price simply because of brand image and marketing. This reflects a familiar reality in modern consumption. Buyers pay not only for the product itself, but also for the perception of it. When a brand builds an image of being premium, traditional, or trustworthy, consumers readily accept the higher price without questioning the true value. However, without a clear difference in quality, that price difference is essentially just the cost of marketing, packaging, and brand positioning. From a personal finance perspective, this is a type of spending that is easily overlooked but has long-term effects. A single purchase may seem insignificant, but repeated over a long period, the total amount paid extra for non-existent value becomes a substantial expense. This is especially important for middle-aged and older adults who often prioritize stability and savings. Recognizing the difference between high price and high value is crucial. In reality, a high price doesn't always equate to good quality, and conversely, not all low-priced products are inferior. The important thing is to understand what you're paying for. Genuine quality, or just the image built around the product. When consumers understand this, they will have a basis for making more informed choices, avoiding seemingly familiar consumer traps that silently drain their finances over time. Another aspect, though often overlooked, directly impacts consumer experience and costs, product packaging and preservation. As mentioned earlier, many bacon products currently suffer from packaging defects, ranging from leaky packaging and malfunctioning zippers to inadequate vacuum sealing. This leads to products spoiling prematurely, exceeding their expiration date. In some cases, consumers discover signs of deterioration, such as discoloration, strange odors, or a slimy surface before even using the product, forcing them to discard it despite it still being within its expiration date. For many, this might seem like a minor inconvenience, but from a financial perspective, it's a significant hidden cost. When packaging isn't adequate, consumers have to find their own solutions, such as transferring the product to a sealed container or Ziploc bag for preservation. This means additional costs and time, which should ideally be guaranteed by the manufacturer. Furthermore, if the product is damaged and unusable, all the money spent is essentially wasted. For middle-aged and older adults, who often have frugal shopping habits and use food for several days, this issue becomes even more important. Poorly packaged products reduce shelf life, leading to premature use or discarding, resulting in unnecessary waste. If this happens frequently, the total cost over time will be significant. Therefore, when choosing a product, in addition to considering price and brand, consumers should also pay attention to the quality of the packaging and its practical shelf life. A high-priced product with poor, easily damaged packaging is, overall, an inefficient choice. Conversely, a product that may not be visually striking but ensures airtightness, freshness, and a stable shelf life offers greater practical value. This is a small detail, but careful observation can help consumers avoid unnecessary waste in their daily lives. Another issue that many consumers only realize after a few purchases is the inconsistency in quality between batches. Even with the same brand and type of bacon, the user experience can vary significantly from one purchase to the next. Sometimes you might find thick, evenly sliced meat with a beautiful color, easy to cook. Other times you might encounter thin slices that stick together, are fatty, or show signs of not being as fresh as expected. This discrepancy is not only frustrating to use, but also erodes consumer confidence, as consumers cannot predict the quality they will receive on subsequent purchases. This situation often stems from large-scale production, relying on multiple raw material sources and production lines. When quality control is not strictly maintained or there are changes in supply, product quality fluctuates without consumers being informed. This creates a consumer risk. For the same amount of money spent, the value received is inconsistent, sometimes high, sometimes low. In essence, this is not just a matter of experience, but also a matter of cost effectiveness. For middle-aged and older adults, who often prioritize stability and minimal changes in their shopping habits, this inconsistency can cause significant inconvenience. They tend to trust familiar brands and expect quality to remain consistent over time. However, when this is no longer the case, each purchase becomes a gamble, no longer a sure choice. This inadvertently increases spending risk, as the money spent doesn't always yield commensurate value. From a personal finance perspective, this instability is like an uncontrolled investment, where the outcome is unpredictable and heavily dependent on random factors. Without quality assurance, consumers need to be more cautious in their choices rather than relying solely on old habits. Carefully inspecting the product before buying, testing it in small quantities, or seeking feedback from other users can help reduce risk. Because in consumption, just like in financial management, stability and predictability are crucial factors in better controlling our money. Another important point mentioned in the content, but easily overlooked by many consumers, is how marketing messages can influence perceptions and purchasing decisions. On product packaging, we often encounter phrases like natural, preservative-free, nitrate-free, or traditionally processed. These phrases create a sense of reassurance, making buyers believe they are choosing a healthier, better product than conventional ones. However, a closer look reveals that the issue is not as simple as the advertisements portray. In reality, some products labeled nitrate-free use substitute ingredients like celery powder, which, when processed, still produce compounds with similar effects to nitrates. This means that functionally, the product is not significantly different from regular bacon, but the wording leads consumers to believe it's a completely different, safer option. The difference lies in the wording, not in the substance. And it is this difference in presentation that creates a gap between perception and reality. From a consumer finance perspective, this is a significant form of invisible cost. Buyers are willing to pay more for products labeled better or more natural, but if the actual value doesn't change significantly, the difference is essentially just a marketing expense. This is especially true for middle-aged and older adults who tend to prioritize health and are willing to spend more for peace of mind. They are more susceptible to this if they lack sufficient information. This doesn't mean all natural products are bad. It's crucial that consumers understand the true meaning of the information on the packaging. Instead of just looking at attractive words, carefully reading the ingredients, understanding the processing methods, and comparing them to other products will help in making more informed decisions. In a market where marketing is increasingly sophisticated, the ability to distinguish between information and how that information is presented is key to protecting both the health and the finances of consumers. Looking deeper into the whole story, a core reason behind many of the problems mentioned is the way the industrial food production industry operates. In a fiercely competitive environment, Businesses are forced to optimize costs to maintain profitability, especially when producing on a large scale. This leads to many processes being designed to increase output and reduce costs, rather than focusing on maintaining the original quality. From ingredient selection and processing methods to packaging and distribution, everything can be adjusted to save costs, as long as the product still meets the minimum standards for market release. This mode of operation has resulted in many bacon products today no longer retaining their traditional value. Instead of being processed manually with time and care, many products are processed faster, using technical solutions to shorten the process. This helps businesses increase production efficiency, but at the same time reduces the natural flavor and overall quality. Consumers, in many cases, do not realize this change because the products are still attractively packaged, appealingly advertised, and widely distributed. From a financial perspective, this is a classic example of prioritizing corporate profit over consumer experience. When costs are reduced but the selling price doesn't decrease proportionally, the difference becomes additional profit for the manufacturer. Meanwhile, buyers are forced to accept a lower quality product without clear notification. Without observation and comparison, it's difficult to realize that they are paying the same price for a value that has diminished over time. For middle-aged and older adults, understanding this principle is crucial for managing finances. This is because, as the market becomes increasingly industrialized, popular products aren't always the best choice. Sometimes, products with less advertising, smaller scale, or clearer processes offer better real value. Selective consumption, based on an understanding of how businesses operate, helps limit unnecessary spending and better protect personal finances in the long term. However, not the entire market is moving toward quality compromise. Some products, as mentioned, are still considered superior in terms of production processes, ingredients, and consistency. These products are often more transparent about their origin, focus on proper farming practices, minimize antibiotic use, or employ traditional processing methods to preserve natural flavors. Consumers can clearly perceive the difference in meat thickness, a more balanced lean-to-fat ratio, less shrinkage during cooking, and a richer flavor not overwhelmed by salt or additives. This demonstrates that, with proper investment, a product can still deliver true value commensurate with the cost. However, better quality often comes with certain trade-offs. First, there's the price, as these products are usually more expensive due to complex production processes and smaller scale. Besides that, accessibility is also a limitation, as they aren't always readily available in mainstream supermarkets, sometimes only appearing in specialized stores or requiring special orders. This forces consumers to weigh convenience against quality and short-term cost against long-term value. From a personal finance perspective, this is a familiar dilemma. There are no absolutely perfect choices, and every decision comes with a trade-off. If prioritizing savings, consumers can choose popular products at lower prices, but must accept some limitations in quality. Conversely, if prioritizing health and experience, spending a little more for a better product may be reasonable, as long as the value received is commensurate. Most importantly, it's crucial to understand your own needs and not be swayed by superficial factors like advertising or brand image. For middle-aged and older adults, such choices require even more careful consideration, as every expenditure is linked to long-term financial stability and quality of life. It's not necessary to choose the most expensive product, but one shouldn't simply look for the cheapest option and ignore its true value. By understanding the differences between options, consumers can be more proactive in their decisions, thereby optimizing both costs and benefits in their daily lives. When summarizing all the issues analyzed, it becomes clear that the story is not limited to a few specific products, but reflects a broader principle in consumption and personal financial management. In an increasingly complex market, where information is a mix of advertising and reality, consumers who rely solely on habit or brand trust are likely to make suboptimal decisions. The important thing is not whether a product is expensive or cheap, but the actual value we receive after each purchase. When price no longer reflects quality, spending without careful observation and consideration can easily lead to small but cumulative losses over time. For middle-aged and older adults, this is a very important lesson to remember. At this stage, financial goals are often no longer about rapid growth, but about maintaining stability, preserving resources, and avoiding unnecessary risks. Therefore, every spending decision, even something as small as choosing a daily food item, should be viewed from a long-term perspective. A low-priced but poor quality product that ends up being thrown away or not fully used actually ends up being more expensive than a suitable choice from the start. Conversely, a high-priced product that doesn't provide commensurate value is also a form of inefficient spending. The core message here isn't to encourage consumers to completely change their habits, but rather to raise awareness of how the market operates. By understanding that businesses always prioritize profit, consumers will be more proactive in checking information, comparing products, and evaluating true value. This reduces reliance on advertising and emotions, instead leading to decisions based on real-world knowledge and experience. Ultimately, smart spending isn't about saving at all costs, but about using money most effectively. Every dollar spent should come with commensurate value, whether it's product quality, peace of mind, or convenience of use. By adhering to this principle, consumers not only protect their finances, but also contribute to creating sustainable consumption habits that are suitable for a stable and long-term life.